Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear friends, I pray you're all well. Allah bless you all. Okay, let's start. Al-Fatiha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama wa baraka ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وامنحنا يا ربنا علما وعملا وقربا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا ولا تهنا وأعطنا ولا تحرمنا وآثرنا ولا تؤثر علينا وأرضنا وارض عنا يا كريم. So we were looking at the Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam and how he spoke to his people, reminded them of the duty they have towards God. Don't disobey Him, believe in Him, don't cheat each other. And they weren't interested, right? They weren't interested. So now what we do, we'll look at the response. And we said that the Mala, these elite leaders that fill people with awe and inspiration, they were telling the people of Shu'aib's people, no, don't believe in him. And the motive behind that was their disbelief, right? Was their arrogance. And they didn't want anyone to listen to him because they thought, we're right, we have a better way, we are superior. It's impossible for us to not be better than him. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now gives another side of this. And so Abu Saud says, let's read the verse and then وقال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه لئن اتبعتم شعيبا إنكم إذا لخاسرون. So the disbelieving chiefs of his people threatened, if you follow Shu'aib, you will surely be losers. So Abu Saud says now we can interpret this in one of two ways. Either this group is another group of the elite, maybe less than them in rank, the A class as opposed to the first group being the S class. And what they do is they're the go-betweens. They're the ones who represent the higher class to the masses and the masses to the higher class. So he says it's either them and or it's talking about the same group as the first time. And I believe it's the latter, right? It's the same group. Now what they're doing is, they have all of these issues, right? And when they said to Sayyidina Shu'aib and his people early, if you don't believe, we're going to force you out, or you're going to end up, either we force you out or you come back to our way. So now that hasn't worked. And Sayyidina Shu'aib, showed his confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he said, no, we're never going to leave this, right? So then what they do is they tried to, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is mentioning what they said to make a number of points. But they tried to dissuade the masses. So وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا here, Allah says kafaru, those who disbelieved. And earlier we had the wording الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, those who proved arrogant, who thought to be greater and bigger than they actually are. What did this group then say? Min qawmihi, they're from his people. Why are you feeling jealous towards him, or why are you opposing him? You should be happy that Allah has honored you, your tribe, with someone from amongst you, right? And it's clear He cares for you. He doesn't want you to be punished, doesn't want harm to come to you. But they don't see that. So it says لَإِنِ اتَّبَعْتُمْ, so they said from his qawm, لَإِنِ اتَّبَعْتُمْ شُعَيْبًا, if you follow Shu'aib, even in the slightest, I think you can understand this. But ittiba is assiduous, like either they're saying if you take his word, and follow him down to the letter, or you can also, I believe you could understand it, that even if you follow Shu'aib at all, right? لَإِنِ اتَّبَعْتُمْ شُعَيْبًا, if you follow him, إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا, then indeed, without a doubt, you, in that situation where you go and follow him, meaning that's the cause of what's coming, la khasirun, highly emphasize, you are going to be losers. And even this khusran, khasara, is used in economic terms as well. But you will lose out. Firstly, in terms of your finances, and you'll no longer have the profits that you used to have. You'll no longer gain money in the way you used to, because you've given up your in what they consider to be perfectly fine practices, which are actually immoral and unethical. That you lose that, and he's going to take you away from true faith and true belief in the right religion, their idolatry or whatever their form of disbelief was. So that's what they're going to say, that all the things that you've worked for in your life, and in your religion, and your idols that you have, and your gods, and all of that, you lose it all if you follow him. Don't follow him. And they said that indeed you are then firm losers, true losers. That's what their statement was. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now will carry on and tell us that no, that's not the case, right? So we'll find out who the losers are. So the next verse says, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ. This is really powerful word, the raj with the qalqala on the jim. فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. Then an overwhelming earthquake struck them, and they fell lifeless in their homes. And we see, in other verses, Jibreel, the other verses talk about a sayha, a scream. So Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam must have come and screamed, and then that must have shook the earth. For asbahu, same as last time it was used, to enter the morning or to become. But you can combine the meanings that, and they ended up in the morning was a time of, hope. People wake up fresh in the morning thinking it's going to be a lovely day. I'm going to get a lot done. Things are going to go well, especially if it's bright and, sabah, the word indicates lightness as well. And, it's going to be a great day. And then what happened? The next day, the very opposite happened. Fi darihim, in their land. So you can say dar to mean a house, a home, a building, or it can mean a land, the land that they live in. Here, Imam al-Biqai says that a localized earthquake is stronger. It's going to be stronger than one that's spread over a larger area. So he says that in their land, asbahu, and so he didn't mention the plural, in their homes. So to show that it was localized in that particular area. فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ, lifeless. And we said that this word refers to someone who's actually just fallen onto his knees. So either that happened when they saw the punishment and the blast came and the scream came, or just at the end of it they were left lifeless, right? Just dead, covered up by all the rocks and debris and everything falling on them, and just gone, right? فَأَخَذَتْهُمْ, the fa indicates as a result, as a consequence, immediately after. They were saying this, so it was their kufr, their disbelief that brought it on. They have no one to blame but themselves. And that's the important point, that it's their arrogance and it's their disbelief that led to these issues. So they shouldn't, no one should say, well, if Shu'aib hadn't come to them, they wouldn't be in this situation. No, he came for their benefit, and Allah is the supreme king. His existence has implications. So you can't just, ignore all of that. So they should have listened. So then the next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا شُعَيْبًا كَأَن لَّمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا. Wow, powerful that is, right? الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا شُعَيْبًا كَانُوا هُمُ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Those who rejected Shu'aib were wiped out as if they had never lived there. Those who rejected Shu'aib were the true losers. Now, in the books of Balagha, they use this verse as an example of, they use this verse in the books of Balagha as an example of the eloquence that comes with alladhi. So those who disbelieved in Shu'aib, takdhib is the opposite of iman. Iman is to make someone feel safe that you're going to call them a liar, that you won't call them a liar. They're safe from that. But takdhib is the opposite. You call them a liar. No, you're a liar. We don't believe in you. Why should we believe in you? These people who got miracle after miracle, who were shown the truth, in a way that no one should, would have any legitimate scope of denial. They were shown the truth that way. And what happened? They called him a liar. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا شُعَيْبًا, which shows that whatever came next was a direct response and result of this. Right? Those who called Shu'aib a liar, who disbelieved in Shu'aib, كَأَلَّمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا, it's as though they had never lived there. How powerful is that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that these people who disbelieved in Shu'aib and called him a liar, the place they lived in, it's as though they'd never lived in after the punishment came. They were so utterly, thoroughly, completely destroyed that none of their traces were left. None of the buildings, none of the signs that their civilization had been and existed here at all in the past, none of it was left. Completely desolate, derelict place, right? With every sign of their existence having been removed by their punishment. Not just them, but all traces of them. Allah protect us. So he's saying, كَأَلَّمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا, it's as though they'd never lived there. Right? Gone. الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا شُعَيْبًا كَانُوا هُمُ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Those who disbelieved in Shu'aib, their disbelief was the cause of this. They, Kanu, truly, really, they, it's the reality of their matter. They were the true losers. What they're saying to the generality of their people, لَإِنِ اتَّبَعْتُمْ شُعَيْبًا إِنَّكُمْ لَخَاسِرُونَ. If you follow Shu'aib, you'll be losers. Allah saying, no, they were the true losers in reality, but they didn't see it because they had chosen to disbelieve in Shu'aib, reject him, call him a liar. Now you see this common trend. It's people's choices and actions that leads them to this, not anything else. Their own choices and their own actions. Had they made better choices that the prophets told them to make, followed the guidance, looked at the proof and thought, well, you know what, this can't be a lie, I'm going to do it. All of that, had they done that, they would not have died like this. But they made their choices, so they suffered the consequences. Allah protect us. Very, very powerful and very eloquent verse. So what does Shu'aib do? He did what the other previous prophets did. He felt sorry for them. These people of living hearts who, have deep care and concern for those who they've been put in charge of, especially their relatives. And so what happens? فَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ, he turned away from them, saying, قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ لَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي وَنَصَحْتُ لَكُمْ فَكَيْفَ آسَى عَلَى قَوْمٍ كَافِرِينَ. He turned away from them, saying, oh my people, indeed I have delivered to you the messages of my Lord and gave you sincere advice. How can I then grieve for those who chose to disbelieve? Look at this. فَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ. Now their homeland is a place where the punishment and the wrath of Allah has been manifest. It's not a place anyone would want to stay. So he turns away and he walks off. He leaves. And I don't know, him, he was rescued and the believers with him, but it's not a place they want to stay now. So he turned away from where they were lived and he went off saying, Ya qawm, oh my dear people, Ya qawmi, my dear people, لَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي. By God, I truly did convey to you all of the messages of my loving Lord. He gave me revelation. He gave me sufficient proofs and sufficient sound arguments and the ability to convey the truth to you. So all of it was enough to convince any fair-minded person who was open. And he gave me all of that, and I conveyed those messages, the messages of, the warnings and the good news and the rulings, don't do this, do that, and the beliefs, like believe in one God, don't believe in these idols, and the reminders, the things that shake a person to their core, the core of their being, and make them think, yeah, you know what, I need to do this, I need to change, I need to improve. All of that he conveyed to them again and again and again. وَنَصَحْتُ لَكُمْ, and I did my utmost to give you true, sincere counsel, to give you the advice that you needed, to help you. He did everything he could. And he's feeling sorry for them. And then Imam al-Bukhari says here, that then he kind of remembers that, yes, I'm feeling sorry for them, but their own disbelief led them to their punishment. So he's feeling sorry because they're his relatives, his people, and now they're dead. But then he realized, that they did this to themselves. So he says, فَكَيْفَ آسَى عَلَى قَوْمٍ كَافِرِينَ. So now, how can I then grieve on those who chose to disbelieve? He feels a sadness, but it's like he's, telling himself, look, no, I'm not going to feel sorry for them. For that. Yes, he feels sad because there's relatives and they've died, but no, they made their choice. They were given ample opportunity, but they resisted and they kept choosing disbelief. So why should I now? How can I now start, feeling sorry for and feeling, this pain over a people who chose disbelief, right? Allah protect us. It's a very sad situation. And how many a prophet must have lived through something like this, where his people just don't care, they just don't want to believe. Allah protect us. So, up until now, we've looked at the stories of, a number of prophets, starting with the Prophet Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, then the Prophet Hud, the Prophet Salih, the Prophet Lut, and the Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam. And then earlier we had the story of Sayyidina Adam. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all chronological as well, in the way these prophets be mentioned, the ulama say. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he does is he gives us a set of powerful reminders, almost like a summary and as rules and principles, you could say, of how people respond, right? And it's a common trend that people who reject the truth behave in the same way. This is why someone who understands the Quran can understand and see it play out in people. And the way wrongdoers and zalimun do their dhulm, very clear. So the way disbelievers disbelieve, very clear. The way Allah tests people, very clear. When you understand it from the Quran, you can see it in the world around you. So then it doesn't bother you. When there's ups and downs, and then when the believers suffer and struggle, the Quran is given as a template. So if the beginning is going the way, this way, the way we're seeing in the world around us, then the end will also be like that. What? كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَأَغْلِبَنَّ أَنَا وَرُسُلِي. Allah has decreed, I will win, as will my messengers. Right? So this is it. So, some of the ulama mentioned that, the common factor in all of these stories is, the belief, true belief, sound belief that Allah wants us to believe, the tenets of faith of Islam. And that's one thing we've learned so far. We've also seen that so far in Surah Al-A'raf that the way the believers are, what they do, how they care, how they do their best to obey Allah, is the same in every time. and the way the disbelievers act and how they reject and the games they play and the manipulation and all the other things they do to dissuade people from the way of God, that's also the same in every time. So that's very clear, right? And then the other lesson is that the end is always what the believers, is for the believers. They end up winning, right? Why? Because they're on God's side. And if God's on your side, you're on God's side, that means victory. So, subhanAllah. So yeah, the surah told us about, like Imam Sayyid Tantawi mentions a number of things, but he says that the surah is told about, enough of the people of the past, that someone with a sound heart that is willing to listen with an open mind can understand and see this is how the good be, how they end up, and this is how the those who disbelieve be, and that's how they end up. So do your best to obey God. Remember the theme of the surah, that we don't be people who are midway. Do your best to obey God and to avoid these situations. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the summary. We'll look at 2 verses and then it continues later. He says here, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِي قَرْيَةٍ مِّن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا أَخَذْنَا أَهْلَهَا بِالْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَضَّرَّعُونَ. Okay, so he says, whenever we sent a people to a society, we afflicted its disbelieving people with suffering and adversity, so perhaps they would be humbled. So وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِي قَرْيَةٍ, we have not sent in any population, any populated metropolis, people where many people live, usually the main city in a country, in a civilization, إِلَّا أَخَذْنَا أَهْلَهَا بِالْبَأْسَاءِ, except that we seized and gripped its people with difficulty. Ba'sa, difficulty, poverty, wars, famine, drought, these sorts of things, وَالضَّرَّاء, and sorts of different types of physical harm through illnesses or injuries or whatever, all the various ways it can be manifest. لَعَلَّهُمْ, so it can be hoped that they will be people who plead and pour their hearts out to God, right? يَضَّرَّعُونَ, from tadarru'. Imam al-Biqai says that even the minimum amount, because of the nature of the word يَضَّرَّعُونَ, it should be يَتَضَرَّعُونَ, but he's made it into يَضَّرَّعُونَ, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the minimal amount would do. From so what's happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that whenever He sent a people, every single time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a prophet to a people, people disbelieved. Every single time. And it's as though, okay, there'll be some believers, and there'll be sometimes no believers. There are hadith saying on the Day of Judgment, some prophets will come with 1 follower, some will come with 2, some will come without any. A'udhu billah. Right? Allah protect us from not following our prophet. Allah sent people to these, hugely populated areas, and few people believed. The rest of them chose to disbelieve. So after that, إِلَّا أَخَذْنَا أَهْلَهَا بِالْبَأْسَاءِ, after that, difficulties came to those people, not because of the coming of the Prophet, and that's what some of them interpreted it as, like we see in Surah Yasin, where the prophets came and then they rejected, then they saw all these things go wrong in life, and they blamed the prophets. You're a bad omen. They said, طَائِرُكُمْ, your own bad omen is yourselves, you caused it. So what happens is they come, they give people good news, they warn them, and other people disbelieve. They reject it. They say, no, we're not going to do this. They just reject it. So in order to benefit them, to try and make them stop and think and realize, what, we best change our ways. Allah is the supreme king. We don't want to get on the wrong side of these threats, these warnings. So Allah sends them something that will humble and abase them, difficulties and tests and trials and problems, all so they can stop and reflect and change. This is a sign of an intelligent person, that the most intelligent are those who believe and accept straight away. But someone who doesn't, and then problems go wrong, you don't start saying, oh, well, it's just the weather, it's just tectonic plate movement. You stop and you realize these prophets have come telling us about God. You didn't listen, and now things are starting to happen. They're supposed to stop and reflect and say, oh, you know what? Maybe we need to change. But they don't. And they're supposed to plead and beg and, oh Allah, we're sorry, forgive us, please. And then Iman after that, like we see with the Prophet Yunus, his people, he left. And then they did believe, so they were saved from their punishment. But Iman is still accepted after that. So that's generally how it should go. But what happens is these people don't take this sign. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends them something else. Allah says, ثُمَّ بَدَّلْنَا مَكَانَ السَّيِّئَةِ الْحَسَنَةَ حَتَّى عَفَوْا. Then we changed the adversity to prosperity until they flourished. وَقَالُوا قَدْ مَسَّ آبَاءَنَا الضَّرَّاءُ وَالسَّرَّاءُ فَأَخَذْنَاهُمْ بَغْتَةً وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And they argued falsely, our forefathers too had been visited by adversity and prosperity, so we seized them by surprise while they were unaware. When it became clear that they didn't want to believe in their prophets, they didn't want to believe in the revelation, they didn't care, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes them in a different way. Allah changes the difficulty into ease. Then after a long time of them being tested, they're given ease. بدلنا مكان السيئة الحسنة. We replace in the place of the difficulty, the sayyi'ah, something that would upset them and make them just feel bad. Al-Hasana, Allah gives them something of beauty, right? Prosperity, easy time, things are good, life's good, and they feel at ease, and there's no illness, there's no war, there's no difficulties, right? Hatta afaw, until they flourish, right? Until they flourish, right? The Arabs say, afa shahm إذا كثر وتكاثف, that the fat on an animal, when it becomes increases, the animal becomes really fat, and the fat is thick, they say afa, right? And so, and hatta afa, until they become plenteous and well off and wealthy, and they have all the states and situations that they'd want. Life's good, life's easy. After this long stretch of difficulty, what happens? They get deluded. So they don't think, but this ease is a punishment, because as a punishment, like if you had a long stretch of difficulty and there's a big calamity and then everyone dies, in the last moments they're going to think, well, we've had a hard time now, it's come in its highest form, okay, right? But if someone's had a really easy time and then they've been really successful and things have flourished and life's well, and then boom, immediately a problem comes to destroy them, it hits harder, it hurts more, it's a bigger punishment, right? So that's what happens. وَقَالُوا قَدْ مَسَّ آبَاؤُنَا الضَّرَّاءُ وَالسَّرَّاءُ. Our forefathers were touched, meaning they really felt the effects of darra, much harm and much ease. So what they're saying, this is life, c'est la vie, right? That's life. People have easy times, people have hard times. We had easy times, these people came claiming to be prophets, and then we had hard times, and now we have easy times, and they forget that they exist in God's dominion. Allah is the supreme king. He doesn't allow this thing to just happen. So Allah took them, فَأَخَذْنَاهُمْ بَغْتَةً وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And we seized them suddenly, whilst with them completely unaware. They were unaware of the punishment coming. Imagine someone waking up really happy. Yes, what am I going to do today? I'm going to languish here, I'm just going to lie around, he's going to enjoy his wine and all that, and then suddenly utter destruction. That's the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because people consistently fail to make the right choices, consistently disbelieve. after they've been convinced of the truth. When they know that the truth has come, they've been convinced by the prophets with many proofs, they still choose to disbelieve. So Allah protect us. And then in the coming verse, He gives us a solution, but we'll talk about that next time. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.